Boom! Welcome into Sports Bet. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Happy Labor Day out there. Big game breakdown. It's gonna be Tennessee and Georgia Tech, and then the Dodgers and the red hot Diamondbacks look to make it 11 in a row. Short show because of the holiday. Time to barbecue, watch baseball, and the football game at night. So we'll go quick here on Sports Bet Betting Insight today. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. It was a wild first weekend in college football. A bad beat was Ole Miss. Plenty of South Alabama money, plus 26.5 down to 21.5. It was 47-13 in the fourth quarter, but the backdoor cover with 2 late touchdowns, Teddy.
The back door was wide open for the Jaguars. Rebels didn't play a whole lot of defense on those last 2 drives. And this, when it comes to bad beats, there's one other, obviously, we're going to talk about in a few minutes with the UCLA and Texas A&M and moneyline bettors for that. But by and large, this weekend, it was a bad result for bettors and a good result for bookmakers. Most of the big line moves we're going to talk about worked out in favor of the house. This wasn't one of them, though. And boy, if you had Ole Miss and laid the points, that was tough. Your butt's still hurting today.
Well, plenty of bridge jumpers went down. Cal beat UNC. UNC took a lot of money. More on that coming up. Maryland upset Texas, 19-point favorite. And then the shocker, you had 2 of the biggest upsets in college football history on the same day within a span of 4 hours, as 33-point Baylor lost at home to Liberty and 45-point UNLV lost at home to Howard. The biggest upset in college football history. 5 dimes had Howard 550 to 1 on the money line. 715 to 1 on the money line was also available. One lucky bettor had $25 on Howard money line, paid over 13 grand. A $100 money line parlay just on Howard and Liberty paid $4 million.
Well, yeah, but how about this? The money line parlay of the night. Howard, Liberty, Cal, and Maryland. $100 bet on the money line for those 4 teams. This is, of course, from the Greek, from at Bet the Greek. Would have paid, $197 million. I mean, obviously, bettors aren't cashing those tickets. And if they did, bookmakers wouldn't be able to pay them. But when we talk about ways where the books are legitimately vulnerable, especially early in the season, that underdog money line parlay stands out like a sore thumb. This one time of year with this one wager where you can legitimately bet a little to win a lot and have a positive expectation chance of doing so. Obviously, if you played some of those big dogs in the money line, you cashed in. But I'm not buying that Howard beating UNLV was the greatest, biggest upset of all time.
Absolutely.
I'm not buying it.
Absolutely.
Okay. From a point spread standpoint, clearly it was a bad point spread. And I'll tell you, Pauly, you know how it is. We talk about the extra board, the added board. It's not like the bookmakers are taking big limits on those games, and it's not like they're paying a ton of attention in getting the lines exactly right for those games. They're looking to draw action. They drew 2-way action. They didn't take a beating on that one.
The biggest upset, no doubt, because last year Howard played Rutgers. Rutgers had 2 wins. Rutgers beat them 52-14. 2 years ago, Boston College won 3 games. They led Howard 62-0 at the half. At the half. 62-0. That's how bad Howard is.
Here's my question, though. Did Howard have Cam Newton's kid brother playing for them in those 2 seasons? Because he was pretty good on Saturday.
Well, if his brother was good, he wouldn't be at Howard. So I'll tell you that. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books continues. Why all the Lane Kiffin money? Good call by Teddy on Thursday's show. I don't know if Zach Abbey can throw the ball, but he didn't have to because he had 250 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. As this opened at the South Point in May, Navy was 21, bet down to 15 at most shops where it opened, closed at 9 at Penny, and you had to sweat it because it was a three different delays in the fourth quarter. It took 3 hours to play, but it was official as Navy gets the win.
Yeah, worth staying up late for if you had a Navy ticket in your pocket. And, of course, bad bet on Florida Atlantic. The lines we're going to quote here on the show come from the openers as opposed to the one-off openers. Like South Point had some really off-market numbers because they went to market early. But by and large, FAU, they were opened about a 15-point dog in the broad market. They closed about a 8.5-point dog. The books got to keep all that money. It was a bad bet on Florida Atlantic.
One move I understand, the other I can't explain. UMass took money again for the second straight game. They opened the dog, went off the favorite, lost to Coastal Carolina. And this was a down Cal team on paper, traveling across country in humidity and an early start, a body clock game at 9 in the morning, West Coast time. Carolina been up from 8.5 to 13.5, but Cal won 35-30.
Well, I mean, clearly there's some support for the Minutemen, although that may well be anti-money for the two teams they faced the first 2 weeks, Hawaii and Coastal Carolina. But for North Carolina, this is a team that lost, 98% of their offense from last year. They lost all their rushing yards and all their receiving yards, and obviously a first-round NFL draft choice at quarterback. At no point in that game did North Carolina even look like the better team, much less a double-digit favorite. Tar Heels took a bunch of money. Tar Heels lost a bunch of money. Bookmakers got to keep it with Cal's outright upset.
Well, no surprise here. USC took money, opened 24, closed 28. They won 49-31 to Western Michigan. Against Western Michigan, they trailed by 7 in the third quarter, and they rallied to win. So much talent on this USC team. Listless performance in the first half, but they win by 18.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold has got to be relieved that the Trojans won, but when you're playing Western Michigan and you're minus 28 in the ball game, 0 touchdowns, 2 INTs, nah, that's not going to cut it for a guy that wants to win a Heisman. When you're on TV playing against a MAC school and you're laying 28, those are the games you're supposed to put up big numbers. Sam Darnold didn't do it, and the Broncos got the money. The bettors got this one wrong, too, Pauly. We keep going. Bettors got this one wrong, and they got this one wrong. They got the next one wrong, too.
Texas sped up to 19. They lost 51-41 at home to Maryland. And keep in mind, they gave up 51 points and 260 rushing yards. The only reason Texas was in this game because they had 3 non-offensive touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, some of the credit's got to go to the Terps here because the Terps came out and they smacked them right in the mouth. And Maryland looked like a very different team than the team we saw down the stretch last year when injuries had devastated that program. But again, the market's putting the cart before the horse when it comes to a lot of the new coaches, whether it's Lane Kiffin, whether it's Tom Herman. You know, it's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight. It certainly didn't happen in the first game. Texas loses outright at home by double digits. They took a ton of money. Books got to keep it all.
NC State in Charlotte against South Carolina, bet up from 4.5 to 7.5. They lost 35-28. Louisville in Lucas Oil Field Stadium to take on Purdue, opened 21.5, closed 25.5. They won 35-28. Never close to covering in that one.
No, I mean, the Wolfpack, from a box score standpoint, you know, if you had NC State, that was tough. I mean, they led 33-13 in first downs. They led 504 and 250 to total offense. So basically, they outgained South Carolina 2-1 for the game. But at no point was NC State covering in that contest. The Gamecocks played with them. Bad bet with all that NC State money. And same story with Louisville. I mean, another team that looked a lot better. There were a good handful of Big Ten teams that were just awful last year. You know, the Purdue's, the Rutgers, the Marylands. They all came out and covered week 1. Played a lot better to start the new season, and they ended up closing out the old season.
And one more. We saved the best for last. Shame on you if you went to bed early. UCLA took money 3.5 to 6.5. That was a bad bet, but a bad beat. A&M money line 44-10 late in the third quarter. UCLA scores touchdowns on 5 straight possessions to win the game, the biggest comeback in FBS history. They win the game 45-44, and Teddy's buddy, Kevin Sumlin, should have been fired after the game.
And you're blaming Sumlin like it's all Sumlin's fault. Like Moore did a great job. You know, all the Bruins money was wrong. UCLA got steamed up. You know, as you mentioned, a 3-point move towards UCLA, single event national TV game. The books got to keep all of that. But what a brutal beat if you had A&M on the money line. They were minus 28.5 in game. They were up 44-10 with 3 minutes left in the third. And you watched it, Pauly. I watched it. Josh Rosen stunk. I mean, UCLA wasn't just, they were unbelievably lucky. His last, 2 of his touchdown passes should have been picked, throwing late across the middle, across his body, got lucky. You know, surefire interception, went through the receiver's hands, got lucky. Did Sumlin miss that interception? Did Sumlin miss the field goal? Coach gets the blame. I mean, honestly, I wasn't, both coaches deserve blame for this one. UCLA gets the win. Brutal beat for A&M money line bettors, but didn't help if you had UCLA minus the points. That was a bad bet.
And there's a first here on SportsBit. A guy who throws for almost 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. Teddy said he stunk. All right,
He
incredible
stunk.
there.
You watched the game, you know he stunk.
Oh, stop it. He stunk. He carved them up there, whatever he wanted. Now, there was just two of those passes should have been intercepted. But you got to stop with this Sumlin stuff. He loses 5 games every year. All right, back for the books. Boston College, Northern Illinois. This opened 2. BC was the dog. They went off the favorite 3.5. Whoops, it fell 3. Boston College gets the win on the road.
Yeah, it lands right in the middle. You know, we had one middle for a game side on Friday, and we had a middle when it came to a total on Saturday as well. Middle's never good for the house when you can cash a ticket on the favorite and win, and a ticket on the underdog and win, depending on when and where you bet it. That's usually not a good result. We talked about BC, Northern Illinois landing right on 3, and of course, the UTEP Oklahoma total closed 63, landed 63. There were plenty of 64s out there at kickoff. There were 62, 62 and a halves as well. Landed right in the middle. Yeah, a push against the closer, sure. But if you're a savvy bettor, you cashed your ticket regardless of what side you bet. UCLA Oklahoma total.
Up next, big game breakdown. We'll start with Tennessee and Georgia Tech, and we'll get to the red-hot Diamondbacks on the road to take on the struggling Dodgers on SportsBet. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBet, Betting Insight today. Time for Big Game Breakdown. Always powered and sponsored by BetOnline. Tennessee and Georgia Tech. Tennessee lane 3.5, 55.5 the total. Rare game in which both teams, not saying who their starting quarterback is, talking to our stats guy, he thinks there's a good chance you see 4 quarterbacks who get in there and play today. You'd think it for Georgia Tech would be Matthew Jordan, who's the junior. He's the only guy who's actually played in a game before, but Paul Johnson listed 4 different guys on the depth chart here.
Well, yeah, he didn't just list 4 different guys in the depth chart. He listed 4 different guys in the depth chart that are all ranked number 1. You know, Jordan, Marshall, Johnson, Jones. No separation of those 4 QBs on the depth chart. All 4 of them have been getting snaps with the first string offense in practice. And yeah, Jordan's the only guy who's ever appeared in a game before, but you've got a lot of different QBs sharing snaps in practice. To me, that's something of a concern when you don't have one guy developing a chemistry with his teammates, especially running that Georgia Tech offense. Here's a quote from Paul Johnson. We try to highlight what each of them do, meaning the 4 quarterbacks, and go from there. That's why I'm not in a big hurry to tell everybody who it is. We may play all 4 of them in the first game. Who knows? So a little bit of brinksmanship, a little bit of gamesmanship. We saw a lot of that between McElwain and Harbaugh in the Florida-Michigan game. We're obviously seeing some of it here. But remember, it's not just a quarterback situation for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. There's an offensive line situation as well. 11 players listed on the 2 deeps. No seniors, no senior starters, 1 reserve. 9 of the 11 players on the offensive line 2 deep, sophomores or freshmen. And when you look at Georgia Tech, the years that they're really good, not about the quarterback, not about the skill position talent, it's about the experience on the offensive line. They don't have it this year. The defense is ready. All the starters are seniors and juniors. 3 seniors at second string spots. But offensively, Georgia Tech may be a notch or 2 lower than they are, below where they are defensively coming into this ballgame.
Surprise, Butch Jones is still the coach of Tennessee. Remember, their win total was 10 last year. They lost 4 games, including a game to Vandy, as they struggled down the stretch and all the close calls they had with wins earlier in the season. He also hasn't named a starting quarterback. It could be expected to be Dormady, the junior, or you have the redshirt freshman as well, OC Larry Scott. For me, the fun of it is to see one of these young kids is going to rise to the occasion. Obviously, they're talented. That's why they're at the University of Tennessee. It's their time, end quote. But the problem could be the offensive line in front of the quarterbacks, as you got a suspension with 1 starter, another starter, Coleman Thomas, isn't available because of injury. And the defense was a disaster last year at the end of the year against the run. You had injuries, other concerns. You have time to prepare against that option, which helps. But if you couldn't stop the run last year, that's all Georgia Tech does.
Yeah, sure. And of course, an impact injury for the purposes of this matchup for Tennessee. They're without the starting middle linebacker, Darren Kirkland. He suffered an injury in camp. So it is an advantage for Tennessee to have all fall practice or all summer practice to work on stopping this unique offense. Big advantage to playing the option teams week 1 versus somewhere mid-season, especially with an athletic defense like that of the Volunteers. But both these offensive lines have got some serious question marks, and neither coach has been confident enough to name a starting quarterback here. Pauly, I wouldn't be surprised if this one ends up turning into something of a defensive struggle.
All right, game number 2, live odds, bet online, exceptional customer service, strong promotions, and every type of wager you're looking for. Dodgers and the Diamondbacks from LA. Hill against Ray. Dodgers are $1.50, 7.5 the total. Diamondbacks have won 10 in a row. They just swept the Dodgers. The Dodgers all of a sudden have lost 8 of 9, and the only win was 1-0 on Friday when Kershaw pitched a gem. Got swept in the doubleheader yesterday against the Padres, and going back to that sweep last week, the Diamondbacks outscored the Dodgers 21-11 on the scoreboard, despite never batting in the bottom of 9th. Rich Hill was an auto fade last time out. That was easy. I don't know why Roberts brought him out in the 10th inning of the no-no against the Pirates. He got lit up against the Diamondbacks, gave up 5 in the first. He had nothing, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, look, he threw 99 pitches, and he almost made history against the Pirates. Last time out, the 70 pitches he threw only got him into the 4th inning. 9 of the 19 batters he faced reached base. 6 of them scored, as you mentioned. It was down 5-0 after one. The Dodgers rallied in that game, still ended up losing 7-6. The quote from Rich Hill: "I was terrible. Everybody did what we were supposed to do, and I was terrible." But you talk about, momentum and current form. The Dodgers now 1-8 in their last 9. This is the team we've been waiting all year for a slump. They're in one right now, and it's legitimate. And when you read the quotes from Dave Roberts from the locker room, they don't seem all that worried about it, Pauly. From everything I've read, last 2 weeks of the season, Dodgers are going to bring their A game again. Between now and about mid-September, we're talking about a team where Roberts wants to test out guys in different roles. He wants to see if this guy can be a postseason contributor. He wants to see if that guy can be a postseason contributor. There's no pressure on the Dodgers. It allows Roberts and the management to try a bunch of guys in a bunch of different roles. I wouldn't be laying a price for this team. There's no urgency in LA right now at all. It's not about setting records for wins. It's about winning a World Series for this team.
Great news for the Diamondbacks, and good news too. Robbie Ray, no issues at all in his return after being hit by the line drive and missing almost a full month. Last 2 starts, look at this graphic: 11 innings pitched, 2 runs, 4 walks, and 19 strikeouts, using all of his pitches now. And he had the Dodgers shut out until allowing a run in the 7th last week. The fastball averaged 95 miles an hour. And as our stats guy, and we've talked about many times on SportsBit, how huge Butcher has been, the pitching coach, working wonders with Ray and Godley and using all their pitches. Ray, quote, following the start: "It felt good. Felt like everything was working well for me. Fastball, off speed, keeping them off balance all night. We kind of set a game plan going in, and honestly, we didn't really come off that plan too much." Now they're moving up on the Dodgers too. When you look at ROI and profitability, Arizona's number 2, up 18 units on the season. Dodgers number 1. They were up to 34 units. Now with this losing streak, they're down almost 12, and they are down 12.5 units in the last 9 games. So Arizona close to the Dodgers there as well. And I think they make it 11 in a row. Money time, play of the day, betting number 963. Let's take the juicy return. Plus $1.40 with the red-hot Diamondbacks against the reeling Dodgers. Goldschmidt killing it. MVP type season, already 109 RBIs. They just swept the Rockies on the road. They continue with the road trip in this night game. Let's take the Diamondbacks plus $1.40. Back Tuesday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com. Have a happy Labor Day.